Welcome to the BCheque chats, where I get to interview some of the most talented and interesting founders and creators in the Web3 space. Today, in this episode number 5, I'm delighted to welcome Hunter Orrell into the show to discuss his fascinating journey from regular Web3 degen to significant investor, advisor, and collector in the Web3 space, involved with WAGMI United, LooksRare NFT, Player Dao, and Futureproof. Hunter, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh,
How
thank
are
you for
you
having me
doing?
on.
And does that
I'm
sufficiently
amazing.
capture your Web3 CV? Is that
Yeah,
sufficient?
that was one of the best intros I've ever had, actually. That was
I
great.
take I take pride in the intros, and then I always have a little extra bit after, which is to say, a little bit of a twist where, and in this case, it's should we be adding Web3 model to the list?
Oh
Because
my God. Yeah,
I've seen those videos on Twitter in the football kit. I'm wondering if that's like a serious venture now, or
it's funny. Model DAO has been something heavily discussed in group chats that I'm in since that original joke happened. Yeah, you will actually see me venture into the fashion industry pretty heavily. I
interesting.
won't give anything away, but I'm actively talking with some of like the top fashion brands, not only like in LA, but I think globally, to do some stuff together. So I'm really excited for that one.
Well, that is very, very exciting. And you were also just showing me off air this top level camera equipment that you've got. So should that be the route that you're taking, I can see why you're preparing for it, or that you might be preparing for it.
I think showing, and this is the why we were talking about this at the beginning of the show, or before. I've really enjoyed being able to show authentically who I am, what I'm doing, like the behind the scenes. Like that's why I wasn't anonymous from the beginning. That's why I was putting out videos over a year ago. I just like that. I like being able to know that the person on the other side of the screen can know me instead of projecting and being like, this is what I think he's like, or this, like, I just want to show it. And I've really enjoyed having that connection with people.
So that actually kind of leads quite nicely into what I wanted to ask you first, which is back when I first came across you at the start of last year, around that, you made what I think is quite a big decision compared to the rest of the people in the space, which is that you went out there as a content creator to some extent and put your face out there. You doxed yourself immediately, as far as I know, whereas other people kind of waited quite a while. Some people have come out, some people haven't. What made you at that point in time think, right, this is the route of content creation that I want to go down, and I want to dox myself in a primarily undoxed space?
Yeah, no. So I entered the crypto space like 2014, 2015. So like Jebus and Not So Fast and Loopify, like those are like OG names that I grew up like. I love these guys. I love what they're doing. I love what they're saying. Like anonymous people. And to me, it didn't feel authentic. I never was like, hey, I want to have a different identity. I was like, I just want to be me. And I'm comfortable with everybody knowing who I am, what I do. If I make a mistake, I want that to be part of, my journey or my history. And I don't want to be able to like clean that away. As well as like if
Set
I
up a
do
new
good
account and
stuff.
just pretend like it didn't happen.
Right. Um, I really do believe that my mentality is to just do good and be a good person. So I wanted to just get that out there and be a forward facing figure in the space.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think like that's it's definitely not something to take for granted, because in a space where there's all sorts of stuff happens, there's a constant debate around being doxed as a founder versus not being doxed. I think
It's scary.
it does add something. It does add something. And I remember in my first episode of this, when I spoke to Brendan Mulligan, he was just like, look, this is the way you do business. Like, it's really weird, ultimately, if you're doing business with people regularly and you have like random people shouting at you in DMs or getting annoyed at you as a customer. It's hard to build proper relationships in that way. And
It is.
yeah, I
But
think
I have noticed that like if I had gone the anonymous route, I don't. I honestly think it would have taken so much away from this journey. Being able to go to like 8 Fest and somebody come up to like me and Tropo and be like, "Hey, like, nice to meet you guys." Like that means and like hear us like have somebody come to be like, "Oh, like because of this, I did this. Thank you." Like to hear that thank you and to know that like to feel like it feels good to like feel noticed. Um, I would not have done this any different way.
Is there any other flip side to that? And has it ever been a negative experience for you?
Oh my god, yeah. So I've gotten death threats. I've had my address doxed. I've had my location to where I'm traveling doxed and basically threatened not to go there. I've had people go after friends and family with scams, fake information. It's that has put a lot of weight on those relationships.
How did you
Yeah.
cope with that?
Um, so for me, I kind of just was like, look, you have to handle it straight on. You have to get through it. It's part of it. Like you've put yourself in the position, and there is that moment where you're like, wow, it would be great if this wasn't happening. Um, but the more I talk to people who are going through the same thing, and the people that are at a higher level who had to go through this to get to where they are, it is just something that comes with being a face on the internet and for people to be able to know exactly who you are. um, Now I have friends and people around me that don't want that anymore and have unfollowed me on social media, and they will still text, but they don't want to get a scam DM every 3 days. And there's other people that just don't want to deal with the weight that comes with being public figure on the internet as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine that being an incredibly stressful and just difficult thing to have to deal with. And I can see how reaching out to other people who are in a similar situation to you might at least normalize it for you, be able to think like, okay, well, you're certainly not the only person to be going through that then in
Yeah.
that
Well, this
respect, as
isn't,
bad as it is.
I didn't grow up like doing content my whole life. This was like, I did a thread on DC Investor. The thread blew up. At the time, I had 120 followers on Twitter. I went from 120 followers to like 500 in a day. And I was like,
It's such a big deal back then, isn't it? Like
I was like,
100
holy shit, you made it. I remember like jumping around and being like, yo, like we're blowing up. Like this is insane. Like 500 followers. Like it had been my longest goal on Twitter to get to 1,000 followers. It was actually my New Year's resolution of 2021 to get to 1,000 followers. And I had 130-ish. And yeah, I remember getting to 1,000 like in April. And then I remember like getting to July and being like, you have 40,000, like getting to like, it just like took off. And it was because, again, I was not doing nothing but eating, sleeping, shitting, Twitter, crypto, NFTs for a year straight. That was it.
One of the really, I'm having this conversation separately with another content creator in the space at the moment, where we're talking about the word or the title content creator. And he made this interesting point where he was speaking to some bigger people in the space, maybe like bigger investors and stuff.
Sure.
And sometimes the term content creator is perceived like almost as a negative thing. It's as if like,
I don't know. When
what's
I get called an influencer,
what's your take on this? Yeah,
when
what's
I
your
get
take on
called an influencer, I want to scream. I'm not like, I think, and I think I've referred to myself as like a content creator, but like in the action of creating content, yes, I'm a content creator. If I tweet something or buy something, sure, people might see that and it might have influence, but I don't consider myself an influencer. At my core, what I do is investing, collecting, advising. I think I'm an entrepreneur. I think that's the term of what I am. I just do a lot of different things that all tie into a business.
So rowing it back a little bit, back to that beginning point last year when you first, so you said you're blocked into crypto from much earlier. When did you start getting interested in NFTs, and what was your objective back then?
So when I bought my first NFT, which was Top Shot, Um, that was just because it was an attention grabber. I was like, whoa, I get this. It's digital collectibles. I came from like sneaker flipping, and buying and selling stuff on physical goods, and it clicked. I saw what was happening, and when I made that money, I've changed $14 into like 600. It was like, whoa, okay, it's real. The money's in my bank. Well, I couldn't with Top Shot. You can't withdraw anything. But I made the money, and it was like, great. Like, what if I scaled this? Like, if I have a lot of other $14 around, like, what if I put in 140,000? What's the return then? So I basically was like, great, there's a financial gain. I see that this is going to change the way collectibles are done. I see that this changes the way IP is handled, especially in the digital world. And then I just saw like the internet and the financial system as a whole. When you step all the way back, look from a 40,000-foot view, crypto was far more than just a financial vector. It was getting all the way down to things that were cultural. And when you have something that has an effect on culture and it's sticky and it's working, in my previous ventures and studying previous markets, I know that I should be betting super hard there. So that's what I did. So I went from Top Shot, I bought a Mooncat, and then, over the course of those purchases, I liquidated everything in savings. I just went crazy buying NFTs. I lost a ton of money, listening to people saying, hey, I'm buying this, I'm buying this. Like, if I saw Gary Vee buy something, I was buying it. And then I was like, wait, pause. You lost a ton of money. You need to get super, super, super like laser focused on what's happening here. And I was filling up notebooks. I was filling up like one of these a week. I'm not even joking. I would wake up in the morning. I would listen to 4 or 5 podcasts. I would read Twitter. I would study the market. I would look at drop mechanics. I still do this to an extent. My time allocation is much smaller, but I need to understand everything that's happening, because when you don't, when you're not actually studying, learning, and keeping up and watching what's happening, you're either going to make mistakes or you're going to slowly lose what the current meta or what the current market state is. That's why you can't come in and just leverage trade. You can't just be like, hey, everybody's saying to buy ETH right now. You need to really be looking at that chart, understanding patterns that go back years to know exactly when you can enter a trade.
So you definitely understood the opportunity and you were willing to go sort of all in on it. What was your hope back then? Like, you knew that there was this opportunity, you were willing to put all in your time in, but what was the best case scenario for Hunter in 12 months back then?
Oh man, what I thought the best case scenario was, to me, it was kind of this ride to making making a job out of it. I don't think there was a number financially I was aiming for. I don't think, besides like that New Year's resolution of like getting Twitter followers, I don't think that there was a influence goal. I don't think there was anything besides I want to have something that's sustainable, is in this space as a business, and to do that. Which is why, like, when I quit my corporate job, I genuinely remember being on the plane right after that, going to see some friends, like an hour after I quit my job, and feeling like I made it. And it wasn't like I was financially free or anything. I think weeks earlier I had sold a twin flame for like $600,000, which is a story in itself. But like, I just remember being like, wow, you don't have a job. This is all on you. If you don't perform, you don't make money, but you're doing it in Web3, you fucking made it.
So wasn't really even, it's not the outcome that having made it, it's like the freedom to now pursue a new,
to me, the journey
goal.
Is the win, right? Like, it's not, oh, I have a fast car and I can afford nice food. It's, I get to work in this space that I like. I will die working in Web3, or maybe if it evolves to Web4,
5
or 5, or who knows, like there's even Web6 now. The fund, I genuinely think that I'm happiest when I'm working. I'm happiest when I'm doing stuff. And if I open a bank account and I see a number, there's no reward there. It's like, cool, whatever.
Yes. So thinking about that in a little bit more detail, we were speaking about this off air. Very happy to go all in, very happy to be like kind of working super hard towards this goal, the journey itself being you know, an achievement in itself to be able to pursue that journey. What were some of the drawbacks as you kind of went all in? Because we were speaking a little bit about sacrifice, and you know, you were also working a corporate job which you left. Why did you feel like you had to leave, and what was the sacrifices that you made?
You know, I don't think there's any way I could be doing what I was doing with that job, right? I worked at one of the highest levels at a technology company, on my way to being a VP and C-suite. Probably right around now I'd be making that big leap. So the opportunity cost was pretty big. Like, to have a salary that was there every month, you go into your thing, great. But I I genuinely think the bigger sacrifices in this journey were like, my time allocation went from working a 9 to 5 to working a 6 a.m. to 2 a.m., right?
Mm.
Uh, a lot of people make that comment, and it's very true. If you're going to go work for yourself or do your own thing, the hours are so much more brutal. I also felt more stress. I had people relying on me to perform.
Mm.
Um, and that, when you maybe have something go wrong, it's like, oh, this isn't just on me, but I have people that have families and need to put food on the table. That requires me to be performing at the highest level right now. And then, like, even the people around me that weren't working for me, like friends and girlfriend and family, I was working all those hours. I wasn't eating. I was losing weight. I was wasn't able to hang out with them or give them the attention. And I think there was also kind of like a value and priority issue where I could get a call and it was like, hey, we need you in Denver or Miami tomorrow. I was like, wonderful, I'm there, let's do it. And to just jump around was, I think, hard for the people around me. So there were sacrifices, but those choices I have to live with. I'm totally fine with that. At the end of the day, I'm a businessman. Like, I'm here to build a business and do things at the highest level, find the best deals, find the best technology, the best companies, and either invest in that or help push it forward.
Yeah, definitely. I wrote an article on this a while ago where I was kind of recounting my journey into the space, and one of the things I said is like, look, there is sacrifice involved here, and if you were to ask me, would I make those sacrifices again? And I don't mean sacrificing the corporate job or the dependable salary. Like, in my mind, that's
Right.
not even the sacrifice. Like,
Yeah.
that wasn't the sacrifice. The thing was like, look, I ignored various people in my life to an extent which is probably a little bit uncomfortable. I was
Yeah.
working too much, arguably. But the question is, would you do it again? Like, is that what it takes to be successful? And if the answer is yes, then sometimes you've got to take that. And I'm sort of on the same page as you, where it's like, there are certain sacrifices that need to be made, particularly at an early stage, or when, because even yourself, having been so successful in a year, it's still the beginning, right? It's the
We're
beginning of
so early.
yeah.
I like to think that, like, oh, the beginning is over and now we're like, at halftime. I still think we're 5 minutes into a soccer game or football game. It's just begun. And I I also am on that same page. I would do it all over again. And there's some uncomfortable things that definitely happened in that journey. But we have to remember, like, we're all competing against each other. Like, when you hit buy, there's somebody else who's either about to hit buy, or there's other people on the sell side. Like, this is like actual competition.
Mm.
And it's gone from, I think last year around this time, or maybe even a little bit earlier, like, let's think like March, April, June, it went from kind of like some guys playing around, and it got very corporate. It got, the right attention came on the space, and now you're going up against funds, corporations, experienced traders, experienced art collectors, people that really are the best at what they do. So the competition level has only increased. So I think actually at this point, it's going to take more effort, more attention, probably more sacrifice to keep playing at the level that we all want to play at and winning.
Absolutely. And in the end, we want to keep moving forward, as you said. So you started, kind of creating content at the beginning, investing a little bit, buying Top Shot, turning that into something, deciding that, okay, this is a bit doable. Why don't I do this a bit more? Let's move forward a little bit and think about how did things move forward for you? Because three of the things I'm aware that you're doing now, I'd be interested to know how these things happened from that person who just traded Top Shot for a while. So you've got the LooksRare investing on your portfolio. You've got Ready Player Dao, which actually is the thing I know least about you, and Futureproof as a kind of media Web3 consultancy, angel investing, maybe a little bit of that. So how did you go from that one position and take all of these steps forwards? I don't know if you want to deal with them one at a time or just whichever you feel like.
I mean, like, we could start with Ready Player. We'll just go in order of like how things played out. Ready Player DAO was an idea amongst friends where, what if we could take what's happening with Axie Infinity and their players and scale that into a guild almost. And over time, it has truly become so much more than that. The beginning, it was, we had 3,000 Axie players playing for us. We were buying resources and assets and trading them. And now it's evolved into having, thousands more players under our employment, but also becoming kind of a venture arm, becoming a NFT and media company. And that all stemmed from just like an idea, a text message, and then being funded within hours. I mean, millions of dollars in a multi-sig within hours. And WAGMI United, very much the same case. It was an idea. Hey, do you want to buy a soccer team? Yes. How much do you need? This, great. Where do I send it? Here, awesome. Boom, done. Wow. Funded in hours. And I think this speaks to the way, like, we can always go back and have the cop-out answer of money is easy in this space. It's very easy to raise money. But I think it's also when you have the right people, the right idea, it's very easy for people like, oh, that is wonderful. I want to participate. We'll do very well building this out as a business. So Ready Player DAO was just an idea.
That's really cool, man. Like, it's so fun to think how organic these things can be and how quickly people can move if aligned with the right people and the right time. And yeah, it's just things can go so quickly. One of the things I think would be a very interesting question for people listening is, on the one hand, people do say, look, it's so easy because there's so much money in this space. There's lots of funding available. That I think that is definitely true in the sense that there are lots of funds sloshing around. However, you still need to know the right people.
You do.
So to what extent do you think about the relationship building aspect and the people you know and how that helped you move forward with these ideas that you were coming up with either by yourself or with your friends?
So definitely being somebody who was forward facing in the space, that whole making videos and tweeting helped. I think where, if you were to ask me exactly what it was that allowed some of these things to happen, I wouldn't put it on follower count. I wouldn't put it on the content stuff. I would say on the interaction side. And I've actually asked a couple people this. On the interaction side, the reply back was, you were smart, but you were so conscious and you're like a good person. And we don't want to bring like money, where that money's coming from and what that person can bring to the table is so much more important than, hey, I can write $1 million check. It's when they come in, are they going to be positive to the situation, able to help adapt the business as it hits, pivot points? And are they going to be somebody that we're happy to talk to on a weekly basis? And that came from literally, if I got a DM, I would literally just reply to anybody. If you want to talk to me, being able to talk, like I've still am to that point where if you want to have a meeting and pitch something to me, I'm happy to listen to it. I'm happy to talk to anybody. And I think from just networking and actively going after those connections allows for doors to open up. But you have to be a good person while you do it. You can't be a dick.
Damn it. That was my next strategy. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And in the end, one of the other questions, though, one of the things we think about, maybe more in Europe because of the big gulf between us and the States and the time difference gap, is to what extent do you think being able to meet more people in person is helpful? Because maybe this is something we have to deal with a little bit more, but I guess even within America, right? Like you're on the West Coast, all sorts of other stuff goes on in the East Coast. Is that a big deal to you? Like, do you consider that a barrier, or does the internet just make that irrelevant? Or do you still think that meeting people in person is super important?
Meeting people in person is incredibly important. I don't think you have to, but I think if you go and get a beer with somebody, that experience is so much more rich and implanted in that person's mind than Twitter DMs. And I didn't really see this until I spent time in LA, when you go to a party and you meet somebody and you can actually, like, that person actually gets to experience you. It's the same reason like doing a video allows that person to actually hear and watch and like, oh wait, this guy is like well spoken, and he isn't like, I think there's an additional layer on that IRL component. But you don't need it. I don't want everybody being like, oh, I have to move to in America, I'd either be in LA,
right,
like LA, New York, or Miami are like the three hotspots right now. You don't have to move there, but I would encourage people to like hop on Zoom and use video, and like it just makes it more personal.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's some in real life quality which is almost impossible to replicate. And when I do these podcasts, because I don't think I'm really doxed on the internet as of yet, but
you're not fully doxed yet. You're getting there.
Yeah, do you know what? I've been thinking about it more and more, and the more I think about it, kind of thinking about even how you did it at the beginning, I think it probably does make a difference, and I think it would be beneficial.
I think for you it would be beneficial.
Yeah,
I do.
Even when I notice myself, and like when I'm seeing other people's podcast content with the face, with the subtitles, it just feels better. Like it's just an additional.
Wait, will this have a video component to it at all?
This won't at the moment because it's just not what I've been doing. So it'll have like a little audio wave, and it'll have our subtitles done. I'll send you what it will look like, but yeah, not at the moment. Maybe we'll have to.
Maybe this is the episode where you reveal. Who knows?
It could be. I don't even know. I think in the settings, this is like no video. It's done in the settings already, so it can't be this one. But maybe another one.
Maybe when we do another one, a follow up, and that's when you reveal. That would be crazy.
Yeah, I think it's almost inevitable now, and especially the more you start to take things seriously, I think maybe the fact that we're doing interviews as well. If you were doing something else in the space, maybe it would be less important. But
well, here's my question to you, and when you, and this is a real actual thing, when I'm doxxed now, I have to choose between my face and my ape or whatever PFP. And so now it's a real question though, because if I'm trying to build a personal brand and I want my face to be known,
what a pain.
I want to use my face, but I lose some of the credibility in Web3 because I don't have the proof that like I own an ape or I own a mutant or I own, whatever. There is a like give and take here when you have to make that choice.
No, you're right. At least you don't have two names though, unless Hunter is this online pseudonym that we don't have.
Like that.
So at the moment, the thing is, we go to these like I've been doing some talks at the London events, and people are, I introduce myself as the name that they're most likely to know, right? Because if I introduce myself as myself, then they're like, okay, cool, nice to meet you. But if I say my online name, then they're like, oh, cool, and then they're actually excited. So
Right.
it's a very interesting predicament that we go through in that respect.
It is.
But look, I don't want to run out of time. I really want to get onto your latest stuff.
Sure.
Mainly because I'm a huge football fan also, and by that I mean soccer. But I'm also an American football fan. But WAGMI United, you mentioned a little bit about how quickly it happened. What was the thinking there? What is the thinking, and who came up with this idea of the internet's team, and what gave you the momentum to do that?
So I make investment decisions. I'm proud to say I think I'm one of the few people. When I got the LooksRare deck, I spent 3 days doing like actual analysis, running numbers on it, and they actually were like, "You're the first person to do this of all the other investors." And I was like, "Well, that's just how I do business." I That was an investment where I didn't look at numbers for more than probably like 10 minutes. I had some questions around like, okay, what's the risk here? What's the potential downside? But what's the upside? What's payback period? How's it structured, etc.
Mm.
Um, but there are certain times where I will make a decision based purely on the people. So Preston is somebody that I respect incredibly. He's very smart. His background is in sports, and just being able to know him personally before this venture even started, I was like, great. He's somebody I want to see win, and especially with his track record with Punk's comic and previous things. Eben, amazingly smart background in financials and M&A, and those two guys were on the people side. I was happy. And then when you hear of Gary and you see G Money and the others coming in as these texts are happening, it's like, yes, the right team is forming. And then the other side, the bigger side of this also was purely an emotional decision on, I grew up playing soccer every day. It was my obsession. I think in like third grade, they asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, professional soccer player. I only wore Sambas. I would play soccer every single day. I had a goal, a rebounder in my front yard.
What position did you play?
I was a striker, midfield and striker. I switched off depending on teams and where I was throughout my journey. But I only wore only Adidas cleats. So
really, I was a Nike guy.
Yeah. So like when the Adidas deal happened with WAGMI and when that conversation was happening, I was pushing. I was like, yes. Like if this happens, I'll be the happiest man ever. Like what a dream. But yeah, so the people, my past, it was a passion. It was something I also thought I could add into the team that I've built around me at Futureproof, and my personal social team are based in Europe, are EFL experts. My head of socials, who actually lives with me now, is incredibly smart, huge Crystal Palace fan, was aware of Crawley Town, and has been pivotal to some of the social plays that we've made. And the fact that we can make this like the internet's team, like I truly think that's happening, where you don't have to live in, Europe. You don't have to live in Crawley. You don't even have to know soccer or football. You just see that this is happening, and they're wearing squiggles, and squiggles is something that you culturally support and you identify with. Wait, if I'm going to support a soccer team, I might as well support the one that's wearing the squiggle then, and the one that's actually using the technology that I use on a daily basis and see as a future. There's a million other little things happening, right, that make it culturally relevant and make it something that internet people and consider themselves internet people will identify with, and I think latch onto.
Yeah, that's really cool. What was the journey on the actual practical side? So that was the vision, having the internet's team.
Yep.
The idea that you do not need to be somewhere in order to support the team. That is very, very interesting. It's certainly novel, never been done before. You had this dream since you were, you've used to play soccer yourself. What were some of the challenges, like actually buying a football club? Because that's like, it's fine to have the dream, but I suspect that is not a straightforward process, particularly in a country like here where, I don't know, the leagues, obviously the sports system here operates differently to America, where it's often
Yes.
a closed shop. There's like family owners. There's no
Yep.
relegation. We've got a different system here. So how did that go?
So I would say it's a learning curve because, again, it's so different. And understanding all of the rules and making sure you're doing everything legally and correctly. So we had to be very careful in making sure we were following all the rules. You know, everything down to making sure we had the right accreditation, and even for me to write a check, making sure that where did my money come from and who's involved, etc. That was looked at. And then choosing like what team to purchase, and that process was, we're very data driven. Everything is a data driven decision. That was also a learning curve of, okay, who are the right people? Who do we trust? What does that process look like? What exactly are we looking for? And also, again, this is a different country. So we're in America. There's different banking stuff happening. There's a lot of little intricate things that won't get talked about, but we're definitely there for sure. And then going from that process of like buying the team into now we own a team was crazy, because now you actually have to make decisions. And that's actually like, it's with mints, everybody's like, oh, once we mint out, the work is done. Well, actually, once you buy the soccer team, all the work begins, right? Like everything, like now it's critical that you don't mess up. So hiring the right coach, getting the right staff, infrastructure, equipment,
Of course.
making sure past due stuff is taking, like, just making sure it goes smoothly.
One question on that process before we go into like the actual decision making now that you have to make.
Right.
How long did it take you to go from the idea to buying the club? Because it couldn't have been very long.
I think initial conversation and text was around Christmas. So
2021.
well, like so beginning of 20 this year.
Yeah.
And so probably from there, I think there was some things that delayed us on like actually getting things in motion. But I think it was like from time all the money was collected to buying the team might have been 3 months, 2 months, maybe somewhere in that range.
That's just so nuts. Again, it goes back to this thing, like in this space, if you want to get something done and you're with the right people, you can get it done. Because you know how sometimes negotiations, one of the
Yep.
things that people say is like, oh, it's a complex negotiation. It's going to take a long time. There's lots of back and forth. If people really want to get something done, it shows that like
Yeah.
you can
And
get
for
it done.
those who are listening who aren't familiar with the normal M&A sector, a search fund can go 12 to 24 months looking
And
to buy something before they land on a deal. So this like that 2 to 3 month timeline is incredibly aggressive.
and to be
Incredibly aggressive.
yeah, to be clear, also, I mean, I'm sure it's probably similar in America, but I mean, I was a commercial lawyer here before. It takes longer to buy a house.
Sure.
Like
Yeah, there you go. That's good. That's also a good kind of point.
like it will take 6 months for the searches to clear. I mean, lawyers are slow. They take ages to read the documents and review it with the other side and do this. Like, unbelievable how quickly you managed to do it. But you mentioned, okay, look, now the job actually starts. All sorts of interesting stuff. I wanted to speak about some of the more novel strategies that you are
Sure.
employing as part of the decision making, right? Because people minted the NFT, and that means something. It's not equity in the club, but it is some sort of meaningful participation. And I saw that you had, what was it? So you had a couple of votes recently.
Yes, we did have a vote recently.
One was about what player to sign next. And
Yeah.
another thing I saw that you did, this is not a vote as such, but you asked for scouting reports to be submitted
Correct.
and
Yes.
for someone to, and then for there to be a prize for the best scouting report.
Yeah.
What's the strategy here? This sounds really cool.
So on the voting side, you actually now have like a verifiable voice in the club. And so when you bought that NFT and you get to claim the physical merch, you get to have access into some, other areas digitally, but now you actually have some way of going and saying, hey, I have skin in the game here on, owning this NFT. I would like to have my voice and opinion heard. You can do it. And to me, previous to this, it was the only way you could have your voice heard is going on social media after a game and being like, hire a new keeper. What are you doing?
Yeah.
We need a new keeper. And until the whole fandom was just screaming that, maybe the staff would listen, but they didn't have to. Now we've put in a way where when you vote, like, we really have to do what you're saying. And so this vote to get another premium player for a position was between attacker, midfielder, defender, and goalie. And I believe midfielder won. Yeah, midfielder did win.
Midfielder won by quite some distance.
And we'll do it. Yeah.
So, okay, separate question then, because most managers, from my understanding, probably in most sports would want, well, I don't know, the English game is starting to take more aspects of the American model and bringing it in. So previously in England, you might have managers who would want to be in charge of signings also. Whereas I know in America, you have the more of the model of like the general manager,
manager, signing team. Like exactly. It's broken up into like division. It's like it's run like almost a business where there's not just.
It's like the manager, you deal with the players who we give you.
Yes.
And the general manager will, the manager will deal with the actual on field stuff. So has that been a challenge in the sense that are people on board with this idea that, look, maybe we're willing to give up some of this control and decision making elsewhere? What's the reception been like, both from players, management, and even fans?
So here's the best part: is Kevin Betsy is not only one of the best coaches that I think we could have found, but he's also so open-minded and willing to experience this new kind of like mentality on like how to run a football club. And not only him, but like all the way down to like I was talking to the groundskeeper when I was over there a couple weeks ago. Like his mentality was like, yeah, I'm all about this. I'm down for what you got. Like I'm willing to try this out. Like what's the worst that can happen, right? And the players are also buying into this idea of, well, this is just crazy, out of the box, never seen before. But like, again, we're willing to try this. And it's going well so far. It also requires that everybody has this back and forth. It's not just us screaming, well, we're doing this. We'll have a conversation. There's some back and forth. We talk together. It's a unit. It's a family. It's something that's all trying to achieve the same goal. And we want to do that in the best way possible. And instead of us just coming and saying like, hey, we're signing this person, deal with it. It's okay. Here are the 3 players. We're trying to figure this out. Here's what analytics say. Here's what Kevin says. Here's what Preston and Evan are saying. Here's what our scouting reports say. Wonderful. Let's take all this information, make the best decision.
And have you been able to get any sense of the breakdown? Because look, obviously lots of the NFT minters might be people who are not traditional or long-standing Crawley fans, right? And also that's part of the point, because you want to push forward the idea that this is the internet's team and we want to expand the fan base. But the long-standing Crawley fans and people in England will know this, is like football is very, very dear to the fans' hearts.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, a pseudo religion for people. How have they, like, to what extent have they themselves been involved? Are they involved yet? Are they intrigued? Are they just a little bit nervous about it?
Of what's happening. I can tell you that through DMs and personal experiences. Like the town is very aware of like, these are not the traditional owners, and there's crypto and Web3 involved. The most intriguing part about this has been, I almost want to compare it to like a jersey swap at the end of a game, but this is like pre-game jersey swap where it's like we're coming in and we're saying, well, here's who we are, here's our background, here's where we come from, and this is why we believe in this. And they're coming to us saying, here's who we are, here's what we've done, here's culturally significant things that have happened. We need you to understand this. And so it's almost like while we're not trying to, but while we're saying, hey, this Web3 thing exists and here's how you get into it and onboarding them into our life and why we do what we do, they are equally coming back and lending a hand out and saying, we want you to understand and appreciate where we come from. And I think with that empathy on both ends, there's been really a lot of success over the last few months since purchasing the team. And I can only see this going in a more positive manner over time as more people understand that we're not coming in like a wrecking ball, but we're coming in with that patience to fully understand situations before making decisions.
That's really, really interesting and cool. And it's great that people can be more open to this model, because I think what people probably would think at the beginning is that the traditional American owner coming in to buy the British club have been a bit more standoffish, kind of managed from afar. But I think it's pretty obvious in this case that at a minimum, this is a very, very different approach. What's the funniest thing, that like misconception, that you think someone has said to you? There must be so many
Funniest
things when they hear about
misconception.
Bitcoin or the blockchain or NFTs.
I mean, so I went over there a couple weeks ago, and I met with all the staff and coaches and players. I actually was out on the field for a little bit with them. The wildest one though is while eating lunch that had double session day between the first and second session. We're having lunch. I'm sitting at a table. Oh man, I'm trying to remember who was next to me. But they turned to me and they were like, "So what do you think about this project?" And he shows me his phone, and it's a very clearly a rug. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I wouldn't touch that." He's like, "Oh shit, I fucking bought." And it was just like, I think the biggest misconception isn't from them, really. Like, I think there's like they're trying to understand, and some people are like, we just don't get it. I think the biggest misconception has probably been from the bystanders who are looking in, not Crawley fans, not Web3, like that are just like, man, they must hate their life, like they don't get it, and like the team probably hates them. Like, I would say like things are really going well right now. We're excited. We're ambitious. I'm not going to make claims on how the season ends. Like, right. Like I want it to go as well as possible, but I think we're making the best choices to put us in the best chances for promotion into the League One next year. So
That's really
yeah,
awesome, man. Like, it
yeah,
sounds
I think
so.
that's like the biggest misconception looking in from the general public. They probably don't understand how, things are very good right now at the club.
That's awesome. What? Obviously, a lot of funding was raised via the NFT sale, and you've
Yeah.
involved people already in some of this interesting decision making process. What are the other things? Like, are you able to reveal anything in terms of what are things people might be able to look forward to in terms of their participation in team stuff, if you are able to say?
I'm trying to think where I won't get my hand slapped by Evan or Preston. I'll say this: the access, the ability to use that NFT as a key, or get you into the ability to watch or experience or purchase something, is being thought out very, very thoroughly. And how we elevate from what the current offerings digitally to experience a game or whatever are, how can we take that to a much higher level, and make that something that not only do 10,000 people want to experience, but hundreds of thousands of people want to experience. And I think this
Okay.
also then starts to peel into other areas, like when we were talking digital assets. um, Digital assets don't only exist as NFTs, but in other areas. I'll leave that. I think that's as far as I'll go on that one without getting my hand slapped. But yeah,
Absolutely.
I think people are purchasing digital assets other places, and that'll be an interesting conversation to see play out and how you might get rewarded. Um,
Very,
yeah,
very interesting. Hunter, that's super, super interesting. I can't wait to see how it plays out for you guys. And I'll have to come along to watch one of these games.
Well, I'll be out there in a week. Hopefully if you're around on the 6th, I would love to have you come and see the first home game.
Yeah, man, that'll be awesome. We got to sort that out. The final thing I tend to leave people with is a question that is more thinking about you as a founder, person going
Sure.
about this business. Like, if you had to recommend one thing for people, on their path, deciding to go all in this space, what would you recommend people keep top of mind?
So I say this one a lot, and I hate it because I feel like people that might watch interviews of mine are probably tired of me saying this. But I think right now, looking at the charts, looking at the market, this is probably more important than ever, which is before you do stuff, you need to learn. You need to sit down, grab a notebook, and start studying and filling out what's happening, because you also want to make sure that those decisions aren't entirely yours so that you're confident in them. I watched somebody yesterday enter a 10x leverage short, and it was because somebody else did in a group chat, and the second that short was down like 10%, they closed it. And the guy was like, why? And he's like, oh, I'm scared, I'm down. He's like, why? Why would you just close it? Like, I saw mine open, I'm confident in it, I've done my research, I believe this will work. And so while this guy exits his position, this other guy waits the whole day down between 10 and 15% on a massive short. And 8 hours later he's even, and now he's in the he was in the green, closes it. But he had that confidence because he's like, I studied this chart, I've watched it, I know exactly what term I'm on. Even if I'm down, I'm willing to go to this extent. If it gets to this negative level, I'm out. He had a plan, he did his research. It's necessary. And the same thing for NFTs. Like, if you're studying all these drops, there's going to be a lot of different IP drops, like Rugrats and Nickelodeon drop that just happened. I've been studying and making notes of all the past drops that have happened and how to play them. I know how to play each one of these drops because I've done my homework. The person who comes in and says, hey, this is going to be a big one, and here's just my gut feeling, might not do as well. So do your research, make notes, study, because this is, again, competition at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Very, very wise words. Do your research. It is a competition. Thanks very much, Hunter. It's been really, really great to have you on. Thanks for your time. And yeah, let's catch up when you're in London.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Take care, man. Bye-bye.